Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the February 3rd meeting of the Montgomery County House Delegation. Today, we have a couple of special guests that we will be hearing from first before we get to our fiscal briefing from the Department of Legislative Services. We will be starting with our still relatively new Comptroller, Brooke Learman. Thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. It's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Is there anything you want to share with us?
Yes, so I know you have a very full agenda today, so I'm just going to talk a little bit briefly about the agency, but would love to take your questions. So thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I'm not sure if Delegate Wilkins is on yet, but if I drop out, she's already seen this presentation like 4 times in different committees, so she can take it away too. But I'm just going to give really briefly sort of lay out a little bit about how I want to build a strong partnership between the Comptroller's Office and the Maryland General Assembly. First, I'll just start with a quick overview of the office. So the Comptroller's Office, as you all know, is the agency responsible for tracking every dollar in and every dollar out. This is a massive undertaking being carried out by nearly 1,000 employees of the Comptroller's Office spread between Annapolis, Baltimore, and 11 regional offices, including one in Wheaton, located in the south building of the Westfield Wheaton on Veers Mill Road. So we're going to be keeping that office there. We love it. And if you have ideas for things we could be doing there, certainly always feel free to reach out. So we process a massive amount of paperwork every year, including over 3.3 million tax returns. And of those, nearly 1.2 million are paper returns. And about 50% of the returns still have to be touched by human hands in some way. We've already received over 100,000 returns this tax season, which started just last Monday. And we've already received over 100,000. And for every payment that we receive, that the state makes, we have to pay those too. So for all of your bond initiatives, we pay out those, we write the checks. For any payment to any vendor, for contractor, the Comptroller's Office sends out the checks, and we're working with Senator Kagan and Delegate Kaiser on their prompt payment bill, and I really appreciate their partnership because it's important legislation. I will add the Comptroller's Office pays out 92% of proper invoices within 5 days and usually within 48 hours. So we're eager to make sure that the agencies are getting us the money so that we can get it out. And the Comptroller's Office does so much to keep the state running. It's been a fascinating learning process. I just want to talk a couple minutes about the big picture for the office and some of our guiding visions. So I shared a bit of this last week when I met with the Black Caucus, as well as at my first BPW hearing, but I think it's important to underscore how I hope the office operates. So 2 areas in particular to highlight is ensuring that our tax capabilities are set up to ensure a seamless cannabis legalization timeline, and also the policy plank focused on wealth building in Black businesses. And I think there's a lot of ways that our office can be helpful, and I've made it a priority for my team to assist in any way possible. So first, committed to transparency, access, and public trust in the BPW. In fact, Delegate Corman recently introduced a bill to bring public comment to the Board of Public Works, and it's a bill that my office will be supporting because the public, I think, deserves a chance to make sure that their voice can be heard on particular items. And it's just important to make sure that people know how to make their voices heard, because it can feel like an opaque process. One of the other issues is on the Comptroller's website, you can't find any listing of the Board of Public Works. It doesn't exist. And so we're retooling our website. Over the next year, we will be unveiling a brand new website. But in the interim, we do want to get up the Board of Public Works so people can understand who they should reach out to in our office and how to get involved. That transitions nicely to a second point that I want to make, is that we need to ensure that BPW is able to more fully engage in the contract process and not just at the front end. So, or at the back end. So what I know today is we are not able to tell the public how many businesses were awarded contracts last year that actually met their MBE goals, how many were on budget and on time, how many made contract modifications, how many companies have a history of wage theft or misclassification, among many other shortfalls. We just don't track that, which is a huge problem. And so I'm excited to work with the General Assembly and you all on when there are statutory things that we need to change. When there's regulatory issues, we can work through that through the BPW level, because the BPW is, of course, responsible for writing procurement regulations. And so there's really specific information as well that I think should be presented to the board that's not currently accessible, including the results of MBE participation at the end of contracts, and that should be available for public review as well. And then finally, I want to make sure the board's mindful that the contracts we approve have a significant impact on our workers and our communities and on the climate. And so as we're doing this work, we are reaching out to agencies now and to their procurement officers to make sure that they're bringing us the information that we need to understand who their contractors are, and that they know that we're looking at the climate impact of the work that we're doing. And on top of that, of course, is the day-to-day tax administration duties of the office. Along with that is, of course, generating really important reports upon which, disparity grants, education formulas are built. And one of the things that we've noticed over the past couple of weeks is sort of a lack of internal controls and communication guidance. And so we have set up more, more thoughtful communication between the comptroller's office and DBM, and we're excited to work with David Romans and his team as well to make sure that we're all talking and understand where we're coming from, so that when we're publishing important reports, they're accurate, they're complete, and they're ready to go. So finally, we have done a lot of reorganization. We have sort of rethought how the agency could be structured. When you think about when I first got there, it seemed that there was one deputy comptroller who oversaw almost the entire agency, had almost 20 direct reports, and it was too much. And then there was the political side. So now we've reorganized to have a leaner front office, so a leaner executive office than in previous years, and to make sure that there's accountability in all silos, and that the silos are talking to one another. So Andy Shoffley, Rihanna Matthews-Brown is my chief of staff and on my leadership team, and she is on the Zoom with us. Andy Shoffley, many of you know, he's assumed the title of Chief Deputy Comptroller, and he's overseeing many of our tax and revenue divisions. Dr. Valerie Sanders is our new Deputy Comptroller of Public Engagement and Communications. Rachel Sessa, who many of you may know from DPSCS, she is our Deputy Comptroller of Law and Compliance. And Ben Siegel, who actually used to work and consult with the Montgomery County government on economic development until we lured him away, is our Deputy Comptroller of Policy, Public Works, and Investment. And then finally, we created a new role as our Chief Equity and Transformation Officer, and that's Dr. Kay Bogus de Bruin. Final note on the office is that the office has not had a CIO, a Chief Information Officer, and our technology and system upgrades are hugely necessary. We have people working literally on green DOS screens to process tax returns. Our accounting system, our statewide accounting system is called FEMIS, the Financial Management Information System. It's one of the oldest in the entire nation right now. It operates on a mainframe using COBOL. So there are key long-term technology upgrades that we absolutely must do. So we have approval from DBM to hire a CIO, and we are recruiting for that now. And I'm looking forward to really modernizing the office to make it work better for Marylanders and to make government work better so that we can pay more easily, that we can work with our nonprofits and our businesses more seamlessly. So I'll just finish by saying at the core of my philosophy, whether it's how we approach the BPW or reorganizing the office, is really it's just about creating a more equitable, more resilient, and more prosperous state. And I'm excited to partner with you to do that. So thanks so much for your time, and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Comptroller Learman, and colleagues. I'll say we have another guest. All of our guests have outs by 9:30 this morning, so we're going to take just one question. Delegate Barbe, go ahead.
Hey, Brooke, how you doing?
I'm good, Mr. Chair. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Hey, listen, I'm going to call you because I know that COBOL is pretty antiquated and very buggy nowadays and very insecure.
Yes.
Unsecure. So I actually know of a a company should consider that
Okay.
reverse engineers COBOL program, dated COBOL systems. So I'll just hook you up with them. If they're any good, then you should consider them. But I've heard they've saved other tax agencies, hundreds of millions of dollars in expenses. So
that's great. Yeah, happy to check in with them. And I will also add, we don't have a chief information security officer in the agency, so we're hiring for one of those. Although we have taken steps in the past couple of weeks to address some of our security issues, which I'm proud of. So
okay, terrific. Well, great seeing you, Brooke.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
And again,
Thanks
thank
so
you,
much, Madam
Comptroller
Chair.
Lehrman.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'll just say a point of personal privilege as a member of the House Ways and Means Committee. I appreciate how much you and your staff are already engaging with our committee. I think I've seen you all more in the last 3 or 4 weeks than I did see the last administration in the last 4 years. So thank you.
Yep. And I'll just say, folks, if you have bills that affect the comptroller's office, whether it's this session or you're thinking about it for next session, please come to us early. We'd love to work with you on them. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right. We will turn now to our other special guest, Maryland's new Secretary of Agriculture, Kevin Addix.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good to see everybody. I'm going to be very brief because I've stepped out of a cabinet meeting to say hello, but I didn't want to miss it. And I do have my team on here as well. Kevin Conroy, Hans Schmidt, and Jessica Hackett are here to take any questions. But first, I wanted to quickly state that, and I've said this in a couple of committees, our agencies, not just MDA, but other agencies, are available to the legislature, and we want to be involved. We want to be for information. We want to be pro and con. We may not always agree on some of the legislation that's coming through because we do have constituencies that we're trying to encourage and promote. And I see that disagreements being rare, but I want to make sure that we're available for discussion. There was an example in the Senate yesterday where our state chemist was available to talk about a bill related to pesticides, and that's not something that's happened in the last couple of years. So please take advantage of that. Know that my goals as acting secretary until I get a vote, so hopefully that occurs next week, but my goals will be to first and foremost make sure that the agency is staffed so that we're running our programs as efficiently and effectively as possible. We have a 12% vacancy rate. That's at the mid-level. Some agencies are up to 20, some are down to 4 or 5. We need to get down to as low as we can. So many of the programs that we operate are field programs, and they're programs designed to help and encourage farmers to do good things to protect the Bay. And we've got new positions that came in last year and the year before to focus more heavily on that. We've got some great grant programs. We're working very closely with the governor's office to make sure that agriculture is involved at all of the top level priorities. And the governor at the Taste of Maryland Agriculture dinner last night, we're with 900 of my closest friends from the industry and electeds. The governor was very clear to say that agriculture will be at the table and a priority. And when you think about the top level goals of and these are not simple goals, curing childhood poverty. Well, we grow food, protecting the Bay. We have impacts on the Bay, preserving land and preserving farms and making farms more profitable is going to be better for the Bay because our farmers will be able to take better advantage of all the technologies and everything else that are out there. So you just go down that list of all the governor's top priorities, and I'm thrilled to see that agriculture plays a role in all of them. With that, I would ask if anybody has questions of me, but then I'll turn it over to the team, which I do believe is on here.
Wonderful. Colleagues, if you have a question, please raise your virtual hand using the Zoom function. Well, perhaps while we give them a moment, if you'd like to introduce or have any other members of your team say anything.
Sure. They are on the screen there in the world headquarters of the Maryland Department of Agriculture. So from our left to right, Kevin Conroy, Jess Hackett, and Hans Schmidt. And I will turn it over to them and try not to be too late for the governor's cabinet meeting. So thank you all very much for
Thank you for
giving us the opportunity.
coming.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready? And share my screen. Loading. I know. What is it doing? There we go. All right. Can everybody see this? All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for having us here today. I am Jessica Hackett. I am the Director of Communications for the department, but I am also assisting with legislative duties. Cassie Shirk, who was the legislative director, actually had a baby 2 weeks ago. So she welcomed baby number 3 to the world, and they're doing great, but she will be out for the legislative session. And Deputy Secretary Steve Connolly sends his regrets. His wife is actually going through some medical treatments. So today was one of her treatment days, but he says hello to everybody. And just to echo what the acting secretary said, we are open and ready to assist you with whatever you need. So if you have any questions or need some clarification on anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We can certainly assist you as best as possible. But with that, I just want to go through the presentation that we've prepared. Sorry. I'm skipping ahead, but I'll just start. So the Department of Agriculture is a small but mighty agency that serves over 12,000 farms throughout the state. There's 2 million acres of farmland throughout the state. So it is Maryland's top industry and contributing $8.25 billion to the state's economy every year with a $3 million value added impact. And there's roughly 45,000 jobs in the industry throughout the state. We do house a number of programs within the department, from animal health to marketing. We do house seafood marketing now, but also weights and measures, food quality assurance. We have the state chemist, we have the state vet. So it is a very diverse agency with many tasks. So to give you an update on the first unit that we have, my colleague Kevin will give an update on pests and plant management, and Hans will give an update on conservation resource. But just a real quick update on the Office of Marketing and Health and Consumer Services. So this is the department or the unit that houses seafood marketing, the Maryland's Best program, animal health, all that falls into this unit. And one of the top priorities we have right now within the seafood marketing program is the blue catfish. It is a highly invasive species currently living in the Chesapeake Bay. It is threatening our blue crab population. It is, wreaking havoc in the bay. And so one of our missions is to promote blue catfish as a good alternative to other fishes, that are available in the bay. So it is our top priority for seafood marketing. We want to see this in restaurants. We want to get this into as many places as we can to get the fish out of the bay. There's a lot of benefits to harvesting blue catfish. It's a very delicious fish. It can be incorporated into many recipes. Last year during the Governor's Buy Local Cookout, it was one of the required recipe items for our chefs competing in the Maryland Restaurant Association's chef competition. The Maryland Food Bank will be receiving a grant through the Maryland Department of Agriculture through the USDA to purchase more Maryland blue catfish. And there is also a documentary coming up about the catfish. So you can see there at the bottom of the screen a chart showing the amount of catfish that's being harvested currently in the bay. Again, it's eaten everything. You know, there's been studies where they've done autopsies on these fish and they open them up and find crabs and ducks and anything else. So it's just eating everything. There's no natural predator, so that's one of the reasons it's thriving. But hopefully our marketing department will help turn that around. Also want to touch on the Certified Local Farm Enterprise Program. This program encourages state-owned institutions to purchase at least 20% of their food from a local producer. Currently, we actually have roughly 83 farmers enrolled in this program. And certified farmers must have a certified nutrient management plan with MDA to enter the program. And for information about what certified farms we have, you can find that on our website. And lastly, I want to touch on the Maryland's Best website. It is an independent website from the department's website. But as you can see, we have Maryland's Best Agriculture and Maryland's Best Seafood. So if you click on either one of these links, it's going to take you to a map where you can find fresh local farm products, fresh local seafood, connecting consumers with growers. And, you know, it's just really a great resource to help us with marketing you know, the beautiful bounty that is Maryland's agriculture and seafood. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Conroy. He's the Assistant Secretary for Plant Industries and Pest Management. He's going to give a brief update on spotted lanternfly.
Hello, everybody. I'll just do a quick rundown of spotted lanternfly and its history. We've had it here in Maryland for about 7 years. Originally came into Pennsylvania, I believe 2014. Yeah, there's about. From a stone shipment from China. This is a native plant to Asia, as you can see on the list here. We first had our first detects up in Cecil County. Unfortunately, it has been moving throughout the state and throughout the country, actually. We had lots of fears that this was going to be very detrimental to a whole host of plants and trees and crops. Luckily, that the doomsday predictions that we had first heard have not come to fruition. However, they are targeting these. They seem to enjoy now grapes and stone fruit. So that is an area of concern for the industry. We have been working with them on education. So you can see here as how it's been spreading. Unfortunately, you know, again, as I said, I might have said previously, this group, it's a great hitchhiker. So it came in again on a stone shipment. So we've been working with rail companies, with trucking companies to encourage their staff to check their vehicles before they move throughout the area. We've been doing a lot of education, especially in the northern counties about this. We will be expanding that this spring into the southern counties now too. We have 9 staff members that are working on this right now. They're all paid for by federal grant. This is a 100% federally funded program. And we are actually asking the USDA for double the funding because it has been growing. It has been spreading so fast. But you know, right now our staff, as long as it's 40 degrees or above, my staff is out there. We're doing survey work. We're doing egg mass scrapings. We get a lot of, notifications from constituents about this. As you'll see on the next slide here, these last few years, as this has become more prevalent, the inquiries to MDA have exploded. People are seeing it. You can see here just for our wetland, we have over just shy of 12,000 inquiries, thousands of emails and phone calls. So people are seeing it, they are reporting it. And we are, you know, we're doing all we can to educate about this. You know, this is becoming a nationwide problem. Our colleagues have seen this now in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and as far south as North Carolina. Unfortunately, with USDA, and this is a priority for us, is to try to increase the funding. The USDA has not increased the pot of money access available to all the states. So as this has been spreading, the pot of money is not growing, so more and more people are asking for it. There was an effort by Senator Schumer to actually almost triple the amount of funding last year. Unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere. But I'm hoping this year with the Farm Bill and this being an issue for more and more states, that this becomes a nationwide priority. Our national trade group, the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, has made this a priority. We will be discussing this with Secretary Vilsack at our meeting next month or this month in Arlington. We have our winter policy meeting. You know, a few years ago, most of the states in the country didn't care about this. We used to have briefings about this and most didn't care. We had our national meeting this past summer where they thought there'd be about 20 of us in the room and there was probably 150. We had the California secretary asking questions because they realized this can be very detrimental to a number of crops, and especially like places like California with their wine industry. So everyone's pushing for more funding, more research. We hope our friends from USDA with their research can find, just besides, you know, they're doing risk assessments on introducing other types of bugs that combat this in Asia. That takes years to do. So I think it's still a number of years away, unfortunately. But hopefully we will have more tools to fight this in the future. But unfortunately there's no timeline on that. And I'd be happy to take any questions when it's over.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hans Schmidt. I'm the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Resource Conservation. Our responsibilities really fall in trying to work with Maryland farmers to help them balance crop and livestock production with ensuring that we're protecting our natural resources in their environment. Our responsibilities really fall under 4 different programs. First, our nutrient management program, which is our regulatory program, ensures that farmers and lawn care providers are applying nutrients, whether it's fertilizers, animal manures, or other types of nutrients in an environmentally sound manner. Second is our conservation grants program that provides financial assistance to farmers to implement these projects on their farms. Third is our district operations. We have 24 soil conservation districts around the state. Those districts help provide ensure that we're getting those practices and those conservation programs out to the farmers. We have a great relationship with the Montgomery Soil Conservation District, John Zalotowski, who's the district manager there, his team, as well as the Board of Supervisors, Robert Butts, who chairs that board. We have a good relationship with them, and the boards or the Maryland Association of Soil Conservation Districts will be in Annapolis next week. I believe it's Thursday and Friday. And hopefully you'll be able to meet up with the boards and listen to them about their priorities and so forth. And then last, our program planning and evaluation program, which develops new programs. They provide progress reports from the Chesapeake Bay. They are also managing the Animal Waste Technology Fund and the Healthy Soils program. So we have 3 key priorities that help drive our strategic plan. First, we've ramped up our efforts to meet our Chesapeake Bay's 2025 goals. We've done that in a number of different ways. First, we've up to 100% of cost share available for 20 high priority permanent conservation practices. We've ensured full implementation of the phosphorus management tool. And that tool is a tool that, working through an advisory committee and a tool that will ensure that farmers are applying phosphorus in a means that's not over application. It's a more advanced tool. In fact, the University of Maryland, we provide some funding and assistance to them to help do some advanced research to make sure that Maryland has the most advanced phosphorus tool that anywhere in the world. And then lastly, we've secured 53 additional technical field positions out into the soil conservation districts. This, again, the districts are key to helping farmers implement practices that are very technical in nature, very expensive in nature, but ensuring those practices are going on farms to help, again, meet Maryland's water quality goals. Thanks. So one of our second key priorities is climate resiliency. We've implemented or integrated climate smart farming practices into our conservation agenda. We've developed the Healthy Soils program. We are supporting research for climate smart conservation practices. We've introduced two new financial incentive programs, the Cover Crop Plus program and the Healthy Soils Competitive Fund. These programs are helped to ensure to bring ideas from the farmers to the department on things that they want to do to put on practices that they want to implement on their farms that help address healthy soils to improve soil health. So the programs are not so siloed that these are the things you have to do, but objectives that to the farmers that they can bring some of the new technology that they want to implement that are expensive. And so we're reaching out to the farmers and asking them, what do you want to do to help meet these objectives? And so we look at those applications. If they meet the objectives, then we have the ability to help give them financial assistance. And then lastly, through the Tree Solutions Now program, trying to provide farmers with attractive incentives for planting and growing new trees. And this helps us also with our initiative, our Maryland's initiative for meeting our greenhouse gas reduction targets. We want to make sure that all our programs and services are available to all farmers. And it doesn't matter whether you're a large farm operation, small, urban, whatever it may be. We want to make sure that we are providing services to everyone, even, historically underserved communities. We have made considerable efforts to understand the challenges of the small urban farms. They're very different than, say, the traditional farms. So we've made some efforts reaching out to areas within Montgomery County, within other parts of the state that are highly urbanized, to understand those farmers and the challenges that they have and trying to help them, provide them assistance to putting practices on the ground. We've launched a small farm urban agricultural program. We've introduced a cover crop cost share program for small farmers. We've developed regulations to implement an urban agricultural water and power infrastructure grant, which helps farmers provide them resources to help hook up to the public utility systems. And then we've also spearheaded a pilot project in Baltimore City for high school students who want to pursue a career in turf grass management. Finally, our overall goal our aim is to provide all Maryland farmers with the support they need to meet water quality goals, embrace carbon-friendly farming methods, and help build a resilient future for agriculture and food production. Thank you very much.
And then the last thing we wanted to touch on was the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation. We lovingly refer to as MALF. MALF is the oldest and most successful farmland preservation program in the country. MALF purchases agricultural preservation easements that forever restrict development on prime farmland and woodland, and the program is in every county of Maryland. Created in 1977 by the Maryland General Assembly. The program is a state and county partnership. The easements are perpetual. And again, the idea is to take prime farmland out of the possibility of being developed to preserve it forever. So you can see some of the totals for calendar year 2022, and then where the total public investment is at thus far. So it's a very successful program for the department. Farmers know that keeping the farmland as farmland is one of the best ways to preserve agriculture in Maryland. So the program's only going to grow more and more as it goes on. And with that, we want to say MDA's priorities are, I think the Secretary touched on this, we want to increase profitability of farms, promote soil health, and continue to work in partnership with stakeholders to protect our most precious resource, the Chesapeake Bay. So with that, if anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer. And again, we're here for you. So if you ever need anything of us, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you for the presentation. Delegate Charkoudian, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you for that presentation and for all your good work. I was just Wondering, sort of two things, I think. If you can give a quick update on the Certified Local Farm Program, which is the program that's designed to ensure that we're able to support the procurement of Maryland grown food in state institutions, sort of generally. And when we designed that, the way that we designed it was in order to make it as simple as possible for farmers. We said that they just had to meet the Maryland nutrient management standards that would make them certified local farmer. What we have found is, I think, or what I've been hearing from folks, is that there are Maryland farmers who didn't know they had to meet those standards. And so when they find out about those standards when they go to become a certified local farmer. And so I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about that, and then support that's available to those farmers when they try to get the nutrient management stuff up and running so they can become a certified local farmer. Let me stop there. Thanks.
No, appreciate the question. So I believe, and the program doesn't fall under my purview, but we just had a meeting just the other day. My understanding is we have about a little over 80 farmers who are participating in that program currently. And you're correct that part of it, to qualify for the program, you had to meet the Maryland's nutrient management requirements. And understanding that there's going to be a number of farms, particularly the small farms, who may not have known or understood of their requirements to have that. We do provide services, or I should say the University of Maryland provides services through the Extension Service to write nutrient management plans for free. We have federal dollars that passes through department to the Extension Services to provide those resources to farmers that they can go to the Extension Service and get those plans. So that service is out there. You just reach out to their university cooperative extension, and they can get talk to the plan writers there, and they can get a nutrient management plan written.
Thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues? All right, seeing none. Oh, go ahead, Delegate Mercunero.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for this presentation. With respect to one of the goals that you listed at the end of the slide, profitability of farms, has there been discussion on building out a farm to school program? I know there's been some talk, at least locally, about having that come into fruition, but I just wanted to see if there's any discussions on that idea.
Well, the department does have a farm to school program. It's a county by county program, so the county can elect to participate in the program. I believe of the counties in Maryland, maybe only 2 do not participate. But it is a very beneficial program connecting school systems with local farmers, and they're always looking to expand. That program does fall under MDA marketing. So the program administrator is Karen Fedor, and she's always looking to welcome more school systems into the program. So October is Farm to School Month, and we actually did have a very successful kickoff event in Caroline County. Their local food director, Beth Brewster, is heavily involved. The students are actually growing their food at the school. One of the really neat things they have is a tower garden where they grow their lettuce for their meals. I have to say, I went to the event, and my daughter is in kindergarten in one of the school systems that does not have farm to school. And we pack her lunch every day. Caroline County does have farm to school, and I can tell you everything on that menu my daughter would have eaten and very happily, had. I think it's a great program. The kids are super enthusiastic about it. St. Mary's County has a really thriving program. So it's a great program that we have. And again, that administrator is Karen Fedor. And you can find more information about it on our website. We do have some good information on there.
Yeah, I've taken a perusing of it, so it looks like it depends on the jurisdictions. St. Mary's and Caroline seems to have really.
Well, I'll tell you. So I live in Queen Anne's County. We do not have farm to school in Queen Anne's County. Talbot does not either, but most of the other counties, Anne Arundel has one. Most of them are heavily involved in the program and doing different things to bring that fresh food into the school systems and really encouraging students to participate and get excited and interested in agriculture. Again, Caroline County's Tower Garden, it's beautiful. It's full of green lettuce, and the students are really excited about being able to basically harvest their own food. So it is an exciting program for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for the presentation. We appreciate you being here today. And I'm sure if members have additional questions or issues they'd like to work with you on, they will know how to find you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next we will be going to our local fiscal briefing. We have some members of the Department of Legislative Services here who are going to be presenting this information.
All right, good morning. With me today is Arnold Aja and Valerie Monroe, and we have a document that we prepared that's called the Overview of State Aid to Local Governments. And if Arnold, if you could share the report on the screen. If you go to page 4 of the report, it shows that Montgomery County will receive around $1.3 billion in state aid for the upcoming year. Of this amount, around $1.1 billion is direct aid, which goes directly to the county government and the municipal governments. And around $174 million is for retirement payments. Montgomery County's aid will increase by 7.7% this year, resulting in a $90 million increase over the prior year. The direct aid funding will increase by $82.5 million, while retirement payments will increase by $7.5 million. Now you can see from this chart that the aid increase for Montgomery County is stated at $111.1 million. What has happened is this report is based on the governor's allowance that was introduced by the governor, and also includes the information that was presented at the fiscal briefing last Wednesday. Since that time, information has came forward that the local wealth measure that is used to calculate state education funding was not complete. We now have a more complete NTI measure. Due to the new updated number, there has been a change in the allocation of state education aid. Around 14 local school systems will receive a higher than anticipated increase in their funding, while 8 school systems, including Montgomery County, will receive a lower anticipated increase. It is estimated that by using this more complete, updated local wealth measure, state aid to the Montgomery County public school system will be lower by $21.1 million. So instead of the Montgomery County public school system realizing a $96 million increase in state aid for FY24, the school system will realize a $75 million increase. So on a percentage basis, instead of 11% increase, it will be an 8.6% increase. So I can go into more of the reasons behind this. It's primarily due to a delay in processing tax returns for tax year 2021. This is due to legislation that was passed during the 2020 session that allow pass-through entities to make estimated payments on behalf of their resident members. So apparently, it is a much more complicated, more manual process to process these tax returns. And so typically, it's taken the comptroller's office longer to process all of these tax returns. As was stated by the comptroller earlier, the comptroller's office releases a report in early December that's based on net taxable income as of November the 1st. And that is the cutoff point in statute that state aid is based on for local school systems. Unfortunately, a lot of the tax returns relating to pass-through entities were not processed by that date. So when the governor's budget was introduced and when we prepared this report, we did not have a complete measure of local net taxable income. Consequently, in January, the Comptroller's Office revised their report with the updated numbers. So it is anticipated that the updated, more complete NTI measure will be used to allocate state education funding for FY24. However, the governor has not released a supplemental budget. This updated NTI measure affects public school funding through the major education funding formulas, and that would require an $8.6 million increase, net increase, but also the disparity grant program, which provides funding to 10 low wealth jurisdictions, will go up by $53.6 million. So in total, state aid will increase by an additional $62.2 million. So until the governor releases a supplemental budget, we have not updated our state aid charts that are on the webpage. So that is just a brief update in general. Arnold and Valerie is going to go into more of the detail, but looking at page 6, the net taxable income update only affects public school funding. For Montgomery County, the county municipal funding, the community college funding, libraries, and health and retirement are not affected by this more complete update on NTI. Now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Arnold, and he's going to give you more specifics on funding to county and municipal governments in Montgomery County. Arnold?
Yeah, thanks, Hiram. So Montgomery County will receive $54.1 million in county and municipal aid, which represents a $2.7 million or 5.2% increase from the prior year. State funding includes $16 million in funding under the existing police aid formula. The majority of funding under the police aid formula is based on population density, and more urbanized jurisdictions with a higher population density receive a higher per capita grant amount. A small component of the formula targets funding to municipalities based on the number of sworn officers. Funding in fiscal 2024 is based on $1,950 per sworn officer. Since fiscal 2004, local governments must reimburse the state for 30% of the state police crime lab costs, which will total $5.7 million in fiscal 2024. The reimbursements are based on local crime rates and local wealth. The Montgomery County share of these costs will total $1.2 million. And the local reimbursement is deducted from each police aid amount. State funding also includes $3.3 million in enhanced funding based on the number of violent crime offenses occurring within the county. Montgomery County will receive $1.9 million in fire and rescue aid in fiscal 2024, and each county's funding is based on their share of property tax accounts relative to the statewide total. Each county is guaranteed a minimum 2% share of total funds, which is around $300,000. Montgomery County will receive $5.6 million in local health grants in fiscal 2024. Statewide, local health departments will receive $115.8 million, which represents a $14.5 million or 14.3% increase from the prior year. Now moving to transportation aid, the state provides capital transportation grants to local governments based on the amount of revenue allocated to the gasoline and motor vehicle revenue account. The funding is allocated to local governments through the local highway user revenues program. And legislation from the 2022 session increased the local share of highway user revenues beginning in fiscal 2024. whereby the state funding to local governments is based on 15.6% of total GMVRA revenues. Of this amount, 9.5% of GMVRA goes to Baltimore City, 3.7% of GMVRA goes to county governments, and 2.4% of GMVRA goes to municipalities. As shown in the table, these distributions increase for fiscal 2025 through fiscal 2027. And beginning in fiscal 2028, the allocations revert to the fiscal 2024 distribution. Montgomery County will receive $18.4 million in local highway user revenues in fiscal 2024, which represents a $3.4 million or 22.8% increase over the prior year. The county and municipal share is based on road mileage and vehicle registration. In fiscal 2024, the Montgomery County government will receive $10.6 million and the municipalities will receive $7.8 million. And Montgomery County will also receive additional funding for bus rapid transit funding, totaling $14.6 million in fiscal 2023 and $14.2 million in fiscal 2024. I will now turn it over to Valerie, who will present on the education aid.
Thank you, Arnold. Thank you, Hiram. I will now provide some details on student enrollment. The full-time equivalent student enrollment count increases by 0.7% in Montgomery County compared to the statewide average increase of 0.5%. This results in 1,114 additional students for the Montgomery County public school system. Currently, the county school system accounts for approximately 18.2% of students statewide. The number of students approved for free and reduced price meal increases by 70.8% in Montgomery County compared to the statewide average increase of 34.2%. Montgomery County currently has the 16th highest percentage of students approved for the free and reduced price meal at 42.9% of total student enrollment. This actually has an impact on state aid on the compensatory aid program, which provides additional funding to at-risk students. State funding for the compensatory aid program increases by $397.7 million in fiscal 24, which accounts for 43.7% of the total increase in state aid. In Montgomery County, compensatory aid increases by $66.8 million in fiscal 24, and this accounts for 74.2% of the total state aid increase. This increase in the free and reduced price meal count is due to an alternative approach in identifying eligible students and not necessarily related to a downturn in the income status of the student's family. The Kerwin Commission recommended that Medicaid eligibility be used to determine the free and reduced price meal eligibility once the Maryland State Department of Education and the Maryland Department of Health have the necessary memorandum of understanding and information systems in place. This is actually the first time that this approach has been used to determine the free and reduced price meal eligibility. Montgomery County has the second highest percentage of students identified as English language learner at 19.5% of total student enrollment. In fiscal 24, the number of English language learner students increases by 6.2%, resulting in 1,768 additional students requiring language services. On page 48, you will see that Montgomery County has an above average share of students receiving special education services. In fiscal 24, the number of students receiving special education services accounts for 13.8% of total enrollment compared to the statewide average of 13.2%. On page 49, this page shows the change in student enrollment counts from the pre-COVID baseline. Montgomery County has the 11th highest targeted student index in the state at 76.2%. This index adds together the percent share of full-time enrollment students who are approved for the free and reduced price meal, English language learner, and special education services. The targeted student index ranges from 38.6% in Calvert County to 118.5% in Baltimore City, with a statewide average at 76.6%. On page 50, this shows the statewide public school enrollment, which represents 13.8% of the total state population. In Montgomery County, public school enrollment represents 14.7% of the overall county population, and this is the 6th highest in the state. Public school enrollment as a share of total county population ranges from 8.6% in Kent County to 16.8% in Howard County. I will now turn it back over to Arno, and he will provide a virtual walkthrough of our website. Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. So I'd quickly like to walk you through our website to show you how you can access our current publication and our updated publication once it's released. So from the Maryland General Assembly website, you will click on the Legislative Services hyperlink located to the top right corner. Once on our homepage, you will click on the Budget tab, followed by the State Aid to Local Governments sub-tab. To the right of the screen, we provide you with a snapshot or general information on the fiscal 2024 allowance. And later on, we're going to update it with the appropriation figures. To the left, under State Aid reports, you have access to our 2-year charts by government entity. We also provide the 2-year charts by program. The first couple of pages are devoted to the statewide numbers, but you could also, we break it down by county. The department prepares state aid data dashboards, and you can see the graph which was on the home page, which shows the annual change in state aid from fiscal 2015 to 2024. And also we provide a pie chart of the share of state aid increase by program. There's also a few maps, one of the per capita state aid and the other the annual percent change. Under session reports, we provide you with the full overview report, which we just presented on. And generally, under local delegation briefings, we prepare documents for the different delegations, and we hope to provide you with one as well. Under highlighted, we have users can download state aid data going all the way back to 2010, and for their respective county if they want. And finally, the department has a link to one of our departmental reports on the local fiscal impact of implementing the blueprint for Maryland's future.
Okay, but thank you, Arnold. I just want to update that once the department receives a supplemental budget from the administration, that's going to provide the additional funding based on the new local wealth measure. All of the reports that we have presented today will be updated, but we are waiting until we receive confirmation from the administration and the Department of Budget and Management that the updated, more complete local wealth measure will be utilized in the education funding formulas. I think that concludes our presentation. We are open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question is for Mr. Birch, and that is that this lag in reporting tax information to do the wealth factoring, is that going to get corrected in the future? It kind of took me aback a little bit that we're looking at figures that don't reflect what we're actually going to get, and that the education funding is actually going to be less than it appears here. And I just wondered if that's going to be corrected in the future, or if that's something that's systemic that's going to continue to present itself this way. Thank you.
It is my understanding that procedures are being put in place. I think the comptroller alluded to that. There will be greater communications between the comptroller's office and DBM and the Department of Legislative Services. It's my also understanding that additional positions have been provided to enable the comptroller's office to process these tax returns in a more timely manner. What happened this year was that this is the first time that the comptroller's office has released a revised report, and no one was aware of it until after the fiscal briefing, until after the administration released their budget. So I think through improved communications, we're going to make sure that this doesn't happen again in the future. And I think the comptroller alluded to that earlier today. And I know our department is working very closely with both DBM and the comptroller's office to make sure this does not happen again.
Okay, thank you.
Colleagues, other questions? Seeing none, we will just thank the Department of Legislative Services staff who were here today and presented this information. We very much appreciate your work.
Right, thank you. And once we do update all of our information, we will resend it to your delegation, so you'll have a revised report and revised state aid charts. In our office, with Arnold and Valerie, we are all here to help you. If you have any questions, just reach out to us, and we'd be more than willing to help you with any questions you may have.
Thank you. We very much appreciate that offer. All right, so delegation members, we are now moving into our work and voting sessions for today. We do have two bills that are on our list for today, and we're going to start with MCPG 109-23, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission members. Just a little bit of background, just so colleagues remember, since it has been a few weeks since we had taken up this bill. We had previously discussed this bill on our meeting on January 13th, and I had special ordered the bill at that time. If you remember, this is the piece of legislation sponsored by Delegate Foley that, as it came in, would have removed the cap on the number of members who could be from the same political party on the planning board. This bill had been voted out of the Metro Washington Area Committee unanimously with one amendment, which we adopted at our meeting on the 13th, that added the need to consider geographic, political, racial, ethnic, and gender diversity on the commission. And again, that amendment we adopted at our meeting on the 13th. There had been a motion at our meeting on the 13th to move the bill as amended. We do have another amendment that we will be taking up today. So in order to take up that amendment, I first need the two delegates who had offered the motion, which were Delegates Charkoudian and Love, to withdraw their motion and their second on the moving the bill. Go ahead, Delegate Charkoudian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to withdraw my motion to move the bill.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Delegate Love.
I'd like to withdraw my second on that motion.
All right, thank you. So now we can take up other amendments to the bill. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to present an amendment that I think will address the issue that we discussed in our last meeting. The amendment is available on the has been available on the website and also on the Google Drive. But I will read it to you so that you can get a sense of what it is. So this is an amendment that we would still strike the language that's in there that requires no more than 3 commissioners from one party. But that's replaced with, of the commissioners from each county, one, if the county executive received less than 80% of the votes cast at the last preceding general election, not more than 3 commissioners may be of the same political party as the county executive. And then number 2 is, if the county executive received at least 80% of the votes cast at the last preceding general election, not more than 4 commissioners may be of the same political party as the county executive. So we're basing the political allocation on the votes received by the county executive, and then the county executive's party would be reflected in the composition of the commission. I would like to move the amendment as portrayed on the, or as printed on the website and in the Google Drive, and as I just stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so moved by Delegate Foley, seconded by Delegate Love. Discussion.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Wilkins.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I was trying to follow the amendment. Can the description of the amendment just be provided again?
Madam Chair, I can do that if you want. The other thing, if you want, I think I have it queued up on my, I do. If you want to let me share my screen, I might be able to share it. Do you want to do that? Is that easier for the delegates? No? Okay, I'll read it again. So this would be an amendment that would, on page 2, after line, it would delete the language that's there about political affiliation of the commissioners or the commission appointees. And then it would amend, it would add the following language. Of the commissioners from each county, if the county executive received less than 80% of the votes cast at the last preceding general election, not more than 3 commissioners may be of the same political party as the county executive. Then the second part says, if the county executive received at least 80% of the votes cast at the last preceding general election, not more than 4 commissioners may be of the same political party as the county executive. So to further describe it, the party of the county executive would be reflected in the appointments, but if the county executive receives less than 80%, there can be no more than 3 commissioners from that party. If the county executive, however, receives at least 80% of the vote in the general election, then there can be not more than 4 commissioners from the county executive's party. So there would always be at least 1 commissioner who would not be from the county executive's party. That's the practical effect of this. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions. Does that make it clearer, Delegate Wilkins, what we're trying to do? I hope so.
Delegate Queen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess because I was one of the people who raised concerns about the amendment, the thought was that we were looking to make sure that we were being inclusive of all the potential political parties we might have, and that could be Democrats versus Republicans, Green Party, Independents, and so forth. So I had heard that there had been talk about language that would reflect the composition of our registered voters to make sure that the commission was a little bit more in line with, you know, the number of people we have. Like if you looked at something that looked at the composition by race, you would talk about the percentage of this race or this ethnicity. So this seems like a very convoluted approach to try to get inclusiveness around political party. I'm not sure why we just didn't adopt something that talked about the composition of the registered people by party. Does that seem to be a little less convoluted? I mean, I know math, but that just didn't roll off on me easily. And have a bachelor's degree in math. So I'm like, that just seems so convoluted to have to look at the percentage of vote cast. I guess you want to say that the people who voted for this particular county exec, I don't know, it just seems too convoluted.
May I respond, Madam Chair? May I respond? Yes, it is convoluted. But I will just tell you that in working with the Department of Legislative Services and the drafters, they were having a very difficult time trying to figure that out. Because the fluidity of voter registration is much more difficult to put an imprint when you're only talking about 5 commissioners. So this, in working, and maybe the delegation chair wants to weigh in as well, because she and I worked on this based on some other language with respect to some other commissions and boards that do have a political component. I don't know, Madam Chair, if you want to weigh in as well.
Sure. Delegate Queen, I'll say that was originally our intention, was to try to make this reflective of the voters in the jurisdiction, in the county. But the drafters basically said, well, okay, if you look right now, let's just pick one metric, percentage of Democratic voters, and it's 61% in Montgomery County are registered Democrats. So how many seats does that translate into on the planning board? And what the amendment drafter pointed us to was language that's in statute for a number of other jurisdictions, number of other counties. I'll say not all planning boards, some are other types of licensing boards, but they mirrored language more along this line, where they were looking at the most recent election results and using that as the proxy, because it is very clear cut. There's no ambiguity about how many seats it should work out to, because otherwise, how do you split people based off of those percentages that may not work out to whole numbers of people? Delegate Cullison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Foley, in the deliberations, do we have a sense of how often the county executive in Montgomery County specifically gets 80% or more of the vote in a general?
Delegate Cullison, I do not have that sense. I do know that in the current situation, that was not the case. So the county executive did not hit the 80% threshold. Close, but didn't hit the 80% threshold. So I don't know whether Delegation Chair Polakovich-Carr has more information on that.
I do. I did look back. And again, so as a reminder, colleagues, this bill is by county. It does also apply to Prince George's County.
Right.
But in Montgomery County, the 4 most recent general elections for county executive, which goes all the way back to 2010, going back historically from most recent to furthest back, the county executive candidate who won got 75%, 65%, 65%, 66%. So under the language proposed in this amendment, it's that first clause, it's the less than 80%. So really this would be maintaining the status quo for Montgomery County, that no more than 3 seats can be from the party of the county executive. In Prince George's County, on the other hand, for all 4 of their most recent county executive elections, the Democratic candidate got 98 or 99% of the vote. This would allow Prince George's County then to be under the second clause to allow them to have no more than 4 seats from the same political party as the county executive. But this really does preserve the status quo in Montgomery County.
Right, but it does, thank you. And if I could, Madam Chair, it does, as the chair pointed out, does more accurately reflect the situation in Prince George's County.
Delegate Kaiser.
I don't have a question anymore. I had looked up the statistics. Thank you.
No worries. Delegate Wilkins.
Hi again, everyone. I agree with Delegate Queen. I think that this is a bit convoluted, and maybe if someone can share why we want to maintain the status quo. I actually like the original version where it was pretty much taking out the party consideration. And I know that we're trying to both make sure that that Prince George's County, that it works for Prince George's County and our county. But the bill now maintains just our status quo. So it sounds like we're, if I'm understanding correctly, we're back where we started. But if you can just maybe explain to me if I'm not picking it up.
If I may, Madam Chair, and please chime in if you, I did work closely with the chair on this, which is why I keep asking her to chime in. So you're correct, Delegate Wilkins, that it does maintain the status quo. You know, I had originally proposed, you know, getting rid of the consideration, but the reason we didn't just stay with that, I think, is because we got feedback from this delegation that that was not acceptable. So we're trying to figure out a way to both accurately, reflect the political diversity in our county and as well as, maintain, allowing for a different formulation in Prince George's County that more accurately reflects what their situation is. So this seemed to be a pretty, it's a flashpoint in time as opposed to voter registration. So you can say, okay, as of this moment in the general election, this is the metric we're going to use, and that doesn't change. You know, part of the other problem with voter registration, it's a little bit more fluid. So, I think that's another reason to go to something like this. And I understand it's a little convoluted, but it isn't that hard to understand because you just look at the vote totals and then base it upon that. But you are correct, Delegate Wilkins, it does maintain the status quo. I certainly would be fine going back to the original language that I had proposed, but I'm not sure that the rest of the delegation would agree with us. Thank you.
Delegate Chi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say how much I appreciate my district mate, Delegate Foley's hard work on this. She and I had multiple conversations since our last delegation meeting, not only because we are different in how we see this bill, but also because in my subcommittee, Economic Development Committee, we were weighing on a similar bill about the liquor board makeup, right? And so we decided as a subcommittee that it was not prime time to move forward. So after my conversation with Melanie Wanger from the county basically, with the chair's permission, she withdrew the bill to give us more time because I was proposing a more comprehensive analysis of all the similar county boards with party requirement to see if they are still relevant and how to best move forward together. But then after I talked to Delegate Foley, we decided to decouple our bill with the bi-county bill because I understand Prince George's probably is in a tougher position than even Montgomery County when it comes to finding certain candidates of different party affiliations. So I know, how everybody has worked hard on this one. And I feel more comfortable with this version, even though it is convoluted. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is with this version, you will be guaranteed at least one seat, no matter what, that will not be of the dominant party, right? So it's fairer. So I can, support this, even though I hope, I wish we don't have to vote on it this year, but if we have to move forward, it is a better version than the original version. That's my argument. And just finally, one more thought is I understand the county executive has not seen this latest amendment, according to Melanie. So they just got it because I forwarded them the link. So that's just a thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Queen.
Thank you, and thank you for a second time to speak. So I do appreciate the effort you're trying to make here. I want to be clear, though, from the origin of this bill, since it does leave Montgomery County in the same posture, is this something that was requested from Prince George's County? Is that why we were seeking to make this move?
I will let the chair respond to that.
And Delegate Queen, do you mean particularly in terms of this amendment?
The whole idea of making the change this year, as Delegate She talked about, we had something similar and we were saying, hey, we need to look at this a little bit more as it impacts Montgomery County only, but because this is by county, my question is, was this something that was raised because of Prince George's County not having the level of representation they would want because of them having a majority of one party and having what you've shown, county exec that has been elected by the majority of the party. So is this something they are looking for?
The bill, as it originally came in, no, was not. Did not originate in Prince George's County. I believe Delegate Foley does have a number 2 on the bill from the Prince George's County delegation, Delegate Boafo.
Yes, Delegate Boafo is a co-sponsor of this bill, Delegate Queen, and he and I did present the bill as originally drafted to the Prince George's delegation. And the feedback I've gotten from Prince George's is now that they see it, have it in front of them, they are much happier with a formulation that allows them to more accurately reflect the political situation in their county. So they did not request it, but the feedback I've gotten is that they are on board with, correcting this, particularly with respect to their complement on the commission.
Okay, so they didn't see this as a problem until we kind of highlighted you may have a problem, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think that's what the delegation chair said, yes.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or discussion? Colleagues, do we need to do a roll call for this one? Or okay, I'm seeing some heads nodding, so we will do a roll call vote for this, please.
Just making sure my microphone's working. Okay.
Yes.
Delegate Acevero?
Yes.
Delegate Barve?
Yes.
Delegate Charkoudian?
Yes.
Delegate Crutchfield?
Yes.
Delegate Cullison?
Yes.
Delegate Foley?
Yes.
Delegate Fraser Hidalgo? Delegate Kaiser?
You don't have to see me. Are we voting on the amendment or the bill?
The amendment.
Yes.
Delegate Kaufman? Delegate Kelly?
Yes.
Delegate Lopez?
Yes.
Delegate Love? Delegate Maricopa North?
Yes.
Delegate Moon?
Yes.
Delegate Chi?
Yes.
Delegate Queen?
No.
Delegate Resnick?
Yes.
Delegate Shetty?
Yes.
Delegate Solomon?
Yes.
Delegate Stewart?
Yes.
Delegate Vogel?
Yes.
Delegate Wilkins?
No.
Delegate Wu? Delegate Ziegler?
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the majority, it passes.
Okay, so thank you. That amendment is adopted. Are there other amendments on the bill? Vice Chair Shetty.
Thank you. Is this the appropriate time to give this one on behalf of Delegate Kaufman?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, my apologies. Delegate Kaufman had to leave a little early for a meeting that he could not reschedule. And I am offering this amendment for consideration at his request. If you'll recall, there was an amendment adopted to this bill that required certain factors to be considered by the county executive when making these appointments. I think gender was one, for example. I think there's like a list of them. Delegate Kaufman's amendment, and I apologize again on his behalf, still learning. He would like to add disability to the factors under consideration to make sure that all individuals are offered the opportunity to be considered, and to provide that perspective as well to these commissions.
And have you moved that amendment, Delegate Shetty?
Oh, yes, my apologies. I moved the amendment.
And is there a second?
Second.
Yes, Madam. Yeah, Madam Chair, I second.
Okay, so moved by Vice Chair Shetty, seconded by Delegate Foley. Delegate Foley, did you wish to speak on the amendment?
Yes, if I may, Madam Chair. I just wanted for clarity to, we did adopt the amendment that Delegate Shetty is referencing at our earlier meeting. So we actually amended the bill, but it might be helpful if I were to read the language so people know what it says. So we did adopt this at our last meeting, and it says, when making an appointment for membership on the commission, the County Council of Montgomery County, subject to, and it cites the section of this subtitle, the County Executive of Prince George's County shall consider the need for geographic, political, racial, ethnic, and gender diversity on the commission. And my understanding is that Delegate Kaufman's amendment, as moved by Delegate Shetty, would add to that disability.
That's correct. Thank you for a more thorough explanation.
Delegate Kaiser.
Okay. I don't really need to be on screen. I got COVID last night. Anyway, I feel fantastic in the moment. AJ, please, back 1 second. So here's my quick question. Why don't we then, if we're adding this, why don't we then add all discrimination language or included categories as we do in other parts of law? Why would we only include the 3 or 4 that are now there, or the one that's being suggested to be added? That would be my only thought.
Delegate Foley, did you wish to respond?
Yeah, I think I can respond to that because Delegate Kaiser and I had some communication about this issue earlier. I think this is not like EEOC language in the sense that, there are, for example, there's a geographic factor that affects housing and planning. I think that, I suppose you could make an argument for adding other factors, but some of the factors that are in the EEO language, that we traditionally look at in terms of, discrimination or appointments, don't really affect housing and land use planning. I think when I spoke to Delegate Kaufman about his amendment, the reason I support it is because he made the point that the Planning Commission does deal with parks and other spaces and public spaces, and that a disability consideration is very relevant to that. So that's my response to that. I hope that helps clarify.
Thank you, Delegate Foley. Any other discussion on this amendment? And let me just confirm with Ms. Young, are we okay to adopt this? I know normally we would take things up only if they have been written out in advance. And I did let the original sponsor of this amendment know that. And just for the rest of our colleagues, please, as a reminder, going forward, amendments should be drafted by DLS in advance of the meeting, which they're going to be offered. But are we okay, given that this is, I think, just adding one word to vote on this today?
I think it's easily understood by the delegation what's going on. So yeah, I think we're fine.
Okay. Delegate Miracle North.
My question, and thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, will disability be defined as part of the amendment? Because are we talking about invisible disabilities? Just to make sure we're just generally just going to assume the common definition disability.
Delegate Foley.
Yes, again, I don't want to speak for Delegate Kaufman. Maybe Delegate Shetty has a better idea, but my understanding from talking to Delegate Kaufman is, yeah, really, I mean, this is just to make sure that, first of all, these are considerations that the appointers, if you will, need to take into account. So I think he probably was talking about, you know, all sorts of disabilities, but wasn't really considering like a legal definition of what, you know, disabled is, or, you know, any of that. So that's just my sense from speaking to him. I don't know if Delegate Shetty may have more to add there.
Go ahead, Delegate Shetty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would maybe consider deferring to council on whether there's an existing definition. I'm confident there likely is in code for what disability constitutes, but I believe that Delegate Foley's response from a policy side is correct in terms of the intent.
Any other? Okay.
I just want, are we looking for a definitive answer? Because I wouldn't know it off the top of my head, but I could do research, but that will hold up the amendment. So I would assume there are number of places that it is just generally assumed what it means. So
thank you. Any other discussion? Do we need a roll call on this, or are we good to do a voice vote for this amendment to add disability? Okay, I think we're going to do a voice vote on this. It's already been, the amendment has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of this amendment, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone wish to be recorded in opposition or abstaining? Seeing none, that amendment
Who's in the picture?
passes. Okay, so Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I tried to raise my hand before, so sorry. This is a question more on the underlying amendment, not on the disability piece. I guess we added political, but now that we've clarified the political party piece, I wasn't sure what other considerations, what other political considerations might be considered if we're requiring the political party already.
May I respond, Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is not a hill I'm going to die on, but I think, Delegate Solomon, that yes, we did adopt an amendment that said, you know, no more than a certain number from a certain party, but we didn't say, like, for example, if there are two members, a political consideration might be, well, we may want an independent or unaffiliated voter on there. I mean, we didn't specify, other than that, we didn't specify what the rest of the diversity is. So I don't think it's, it conflicts with what we adopted. Again, it's not a hill I'm going to die on, but I do think that, you know, there still may be a political consideration once you carve out how many seats go to the, you know, the majority of people that voted for the county executive, then what's left, there may be a political consideration. That's my response.
Thank you.
Delegate Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a similar question to Delegate Solomon, and maybe directed to the council. So my question is whether political diversity encompasses ideological diversity. I think it's pretty easy on issues of park and planning to assemble a board that basically all agrees on the relevant issues, but that are members of different political parties. And I've been somewhat frustrated by this entire discussion that I think we've been conflating political or partisan diversity with ideological diversity. I think there are two totally different things. And I was just wondering for council whether political identity or diversity is defined and whether that encompasses ideological diversity. If it does, I think the bill is consistent with what a lot of us spoke about, which is that we want more ideological diversity. If it doesn't, if it's just talking about partisan diversity, I think a lot of us are going to be disappointed with the outcome of the bill.
Okay, Ms. Young.
Oh, again, the election law is not specifically my area of expertise, but my understanding is in terms of the election law article, it is really strictly defined by majority party, minority party, and then sub-minority parties from that. So it isn't ideological. It is literally the registered and organized parties. I would be happy to follow up with more information and research on that, but that is my general understanding of how this is considered under most of Maryland law, if not all.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Barbe.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. you know, on the issue of ideological diversity, I think that you can't do it and ought not to do it, because that's just part of the legislative process. I mean, who is progressive, who is merely liberal, who is moderate? I mean, I just don't know of any way to parse that out. I just think that you know, this is what elections are for. People get elected and they choose people and confirm people, and oftentimes we're disappointed and sometimes we're not. So I'll vote for the bill the way it is.
Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In response to Delegate Stewart, first of all, the language in that part of the bill does not talk about political party. It just says political diversity. So whether, that's, I don't know that, to follow up on what Delegate Barbie said, I'm not sure that that means progressive or conservative or liberal or whatever, but I just wanted to point out that it does not say political party in that part of the bill. It says political should be a consideration. And I think, you could interpret that if you wanted to encompass some ideology.
Thank you, Delegate Foley. I think the bells have rung. I think we're going to go ahead and do a roll call for this, and that'll be our last piece of business here for today. We could do the roll call, or I'm sorry, we don't have a motion yet for the bill as amended.
Favorable.
Okay.
Second.
Moved favorable by Delegate Barbie, seconded by Vice Chair Shetty.
Great. Delegate Acevero.
Yes.
Delegate Barbie.
Yes.
Delegate Charkoudian.
Yes.
Delegate Crutchfield.
Yes.
Delegate Cullison.
Yes.
Delegate Foley.
Yes.
Delegate Fraser Hidalgo. Delegate Kaiser.
Miss Tiger.
No.
Delegate Kaufman's not on. Delegate Kelly.
Yes.
Delegate Corman.
Yes.
Delegate Lopez. Delegate Love. Delegate Maricopa North.
Yes.
Delegate Moon.
Yes, and I'm pulled over.
Delegate Chi.
Yes.
Delegate Queen.
No.
Delegate Resnick.
Yes.
Delegate Shetty.
Yes.
Delegate Solomon.
Yes.
Delegate Stewart.
Yes.
Delegate Vogel.
Yes.
Delegate Wilkins.
No.
Delegate Wu. Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
with 18 votes in the affirmative, the motion carries.
All right. Thank you, colleagues. Let's get over to the floor. We are adjourned.